Brad Pitt's $327 million thriller still has one of the most shocking endings in movie history. It is truly a fine art to be able to craft intricate and compelling stories that build tension and shock audiences to their core. This is common in the thriller genre, especially mystery thrillers about murder. Not every director is able to capture the essence of what mystery thrillers should look and feel like, but no one does it better than David Fincher. Making a career out of dark and distinct thriller gems, Fincher burst onto the Hollywood scene with his 1995 classic, 70 Yen. In the years following, he continued to make a name for himself in the genre and has often been labeled the modern-day master of mystery thrillers. His most frequent collaborator in the 90s was Brad Pitt, who was also on the rise and proving to be one of the most versatile movie stars in Hollywood. Early in his career, Pitt was considered to be a basic star that audiences wanted to see on screen, but wasn't appreciated for just how great a performer he actually was. Looking back on his career, Pitt proved to be one of the great talents in cinema as he brought something new to each and every role he took. Not shying away from any genre, Pitt appeared in a ton of instant classics. Some of his best work came when working with David Fincher, and their best work together is debatable. Fincher fans often talk about the same two films when discussing his masterpiece, 70 Yen and Fight Club. While it's hard to say for sure which is better, they both have one thing in common, and that's a killer twist ending. However, 70 Yen has had profound effect on audiences that continues to this very day, and it's all because of its ending. 70 Yen continues to be one of the most impactful thrillers of all time when audiences first got to know David Fincher, especially since his first feature film was far from the kinds of films he would be making throughout his career. Starting out making music videos, Fincher was hired for his feature debut in a big way by landing the third Alien movie. However, that film was far from what fans expected and even further from how great Fincher was as a visionary. In 1995, 70 Yen blew people's minds as two detectives, Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, find themselves in the middle of one of the most chilling murder cases. Suddenly chasing a serial killer with calculated moves, intricate targets, and evasive talents, Mills and Somerset are always 5 steps behind their suspect, and it eventually costs them greatly. Fincher's direction, along with daunting and desolate cinematography by Darius Condé, made 70 Yen especially challenging for audiences looking to enjoy a night out at the movies. 70 Yen is far from what audiences expected, and is intentionally meant to disturb on the deepest levels. While performances bring tons of emotion and depth to the film, it's Andrew Kevin Walker's script that stands out most about 70 Yen, as he brilliantly crafted one of the greatest murder mysteries of all time. Understanding the function of his script, Walker pushed every button, and Fincher beautifully visualized it. What 70 Yen is remembered for, other than its eerie storyline and twist, is the tonal boundaries it pushes. While being possibly the greatest murder story ever crafted as well as the greatest serial killer thriller, it evokes very specific emotion from the audience. It's clear that optimism and heroism are short-lived aspects of 70 Yen, and the bad guy is winning the entire movie. However, unlike other villain stories, there is nothing to glorify and everything to vilify about the antagonist John Doe. As he strings Mills and Somerset along for 2+ hours, John Doe is a devilish and deadly presence that exists as a presence for most of the film. Only appearing in the flesh in the last act, Doe is even more terrifying because his personality is made clear solely through his disturbing actions. When a face is put to these actions, it's almost surprising, as is nothing more than an unassuming little weaselly figure who can easily blend in with society still. When he speaks, the monster beneath is plain to see. Kevin Spacey is terrifying in one of his best roles, but it's the reactions of Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman that propel the dynamics between the three characters to greater heights. Through every element of 70 Yen, the film exists as one of the great works in cinema in the last 30 years, and it's not just in the thriller genre but in general. 70 Yen has one of the most shocking twists of all time. It doesn't matter when audiences finally experience 70 Yen. It has had a lasting impact all these years later and will have the same effect now that it had 30 years ago. Its defining trait is its reverberating twist in the last few minutes. The design of 70 Yen is masterful because it plays on every trope in the murder mystery genre. Throughout the story, two detectives believe that they are hunting a killer when, in actuality, the killer is targeting them specifically to be an integral part of his grand plan. However, The film is designed to progress like any other serial killer movie, where the detectives feel like they are closer and closer, and even appear formidable enough to challenge John Doe in the final moments that audiences realize they never had a chance, and no one stops to think about whether they are in just as much danger as anyone else. Doe makes David Mills, in particular, and his wife, Tracy, a victim as well, and the main targets of his final move. Fans remember it well because they never saw it coming, and were at a loss for words when it happened. The question of who John Doe's final target is, on his list of 7 sinful targets, comes to mind as the story nears its ending. With only Roth left in Doe's game, which involves a list of the 7 deadly sins, audiences wonder what's up the killer's sleeve for the grand finale. In the final moments, Doe reveals that he always planned for Detective Mills to be the last sin, Roth, in his game by having Mills be the one to kill him. Always planning to die within his own scheme, Doe kills Mills' wife, Tracy, and puts her head in a box. This box arrived at the opportune time for Mills and Somerset to realize what had been done. The famous line, "What's in the box?" is one of the most iconic in movie history, as Mills has to grapple with the truth of what has just happened. What makes this final act the most disturbing is that Tracy was pregnant and Mills didn't know it. The realization that their prisoner had just killed his wife and unborn child was too much to bear. All 3 characters knew at that moment that there was no other outcome. The devastation of the moment is a combination of elements: David's realization, the shock of the reveal, the horrifying act itself, and the fact that killing John Doe would mean he wins and gets exactly what he wants. Somerset knows this, but also knows there's no way Mills is going to contain his emotions. Naturally, Mills kills Doe, cementing Doe's victory and bringing an end to one of the most violent and deadly murder stories ever put on screen. It's one of the most shocking twist endings and solidifies the 7EN as one of the greatest films of all time. David Fincher made a career out of shocking twists. Not only did Fincher follow up to 7EN with the underrated thriller gem The Game, but he made arguably his masterpiece, if it's not to 7EN, in 1999 with Fight Club. As he continued to make films well into the 21st century, he made a ton of great thrillers, and they are all masterful. While none will ever live,